Avenida Paulista was deserted, save for a few slow-moving cars and the distant wail of police sirens. Oscar, dressed in dark clothes and a leather jacket, walked quickly along the sidewalk, illuminated by the lights of buildings and street lamps. The air was colder than usual, and the sound of his boots echoed across the avenue. The scent of asphalt and the trees lining the walkway mingled with the smells of closed cafes and restaurants, creating a sense of loneliness in the bustling heart of the city. He stopped abruptly upon hearing a whisper from a narrow alleyway, barely audible above the wind's murmur. The voice was soft, yet unusually clear, as if speaking directly into his mind. Without hesitation, Oscar followed the sound. His pace quickened as the murmur transformed into fragmented words about ancient times and forgotten truths. Reaching the corner, he found only a worn brick wall and a haphazardly posted flyer advertising a conference on anomalous acoustic phenomena at the Museum of Natural History. The date was that very night. At the museum, rooms filled with dusty artifacts and ancient maps served as the backdrop for a meeting between scientists and mystics. A woman with gray hair and round glasses, Dr. Arya Fox, argued with Radham, a man wearing a blue turban, about the nature of the sound echoing through the city. "This is no natural phenomenon," she said, pointing to graphs displaying impossible frequency patterns. "It's everywhere and nowhere, as if time had folded over itself." Radham shook his head. "You dissect the mystery into atoms, but ignore the obvious. This is a call. Something or someone is trying to communicate beyond the rules we know." While they debated, Oscar remained in the shadows, observing a group of students examining a strange metallic device found in the Hudson River. The object, corroded by water, emitted a low hum that seemed to synchronize with the voice's accounts. One of the students, upon touching it, fainted abruptly, murmuring phrases in unknown tongues. The following morning, in a bustling local market, amidst stalls overflowing with fresh fruit and colorful fabrics, Veronica found a pair of reading glasses with simple lenses and a slightly bent metal frame. They seemed to have been worn by many people over time, yet held a familiar quality. She put them on, and her vision instantly sharpened, as if returning to a place she already knew. The market's colors intensified, and previously unnoticed details, like the veins of a banana leaf or the faded patterns of a shawl, stood out with unnerving precision. Approaching a stall of used books, an ancient volume open on the table displayed an illustration of a human figure with sound waves emanating from their mouth, connected to celestial spheres. The Latin inscription read, "He who hears eternity shall no longer belong to his time." Veronica felt a shiver, as if the book had chosen her, and tucked it into her bag, ignoring the seller's uneasy gaze. As dusk fell, Oscar and Veronica's paths crossed unknowingly. He was heading to an abandoned subway station, where witnesses reported hearing the sound with increased intensity, while she, guided by a sudden intuition, followed him to the same place. On the station's walls, faded graffiti formed symbols that, through the glasses, seemed to pulse in sync with the hum of the museum's device. On one platform, a man in a black suit and gloves collected samples of a silvery liquid dripping from the walls. Noticing Veronica, he muttered something into a walkie-talkie and vanished through a side passage. Oscar, on the other hand, found a diary in an abandoned backpack. Its pages were filled with notes on experiments with sound waves and references to a temporal fracture in New York City. The final lines were scrawled with urgency. "They, some entity, don't want us to know, but the voice is the key. It does not age because it does not exist in our time." As night deepened, the city seemed to breathe differently. Traffic lights flickered at irregular intervals, and the distant rumble of trains mingled with whispered voices in dead languages. In a 12th-floor apartment of an unnamed building, Radham and Dr. Fox confronted the man in the black suit, now revealed as an agent of an organization that had monitored the sound for decades. "You cannot control what you do not understand," said Radham, holding a fragment of the Hudson River device. "This is not technology, it is a wound. Some force has torn the membrane between times, and the voice is the blood that flows." Dr. Fox, however, remained skeptical. "If this is true, then hearing is as dangerous as ignoring it. How do we decide who deserves to know?" The question hung in the air unanswered, while outside, Veronica and Oscar, each at opposite ends of the city, put on their glasses and opened the book and diary simultaneously. The written words sprang to life, transforming into coordinates pointing to a single street in New York City, the same one where centuries ago an anonymous poet wrote that time is a river flowing inward. The black-suited agent adjusted his dark glasses as he watched the screens in Times Square. The flashing lights cast distorted shadows on his face, but his eyes remained fixed on one point: an amateur video that was going viral on social media. In it, a group of teenagers filmed themselves on the subway, laughing until one of them suddenly froze, eyes wide. "Aren't you hearing it?" he asked before fainting. The amplified audio revealed a low hum, similar to the Hudson River device. The agent touched his headset. "They are spreading. Intercept any mention of voice or fracture." Meanwhile, Veronica walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, an ancient book tucked under her arm. The glasses, now permanently on her face, made the city lights shimmer like candles in the wind. Pages from the diary Oscar found began to overlay in her mind, as if the words were conversing with each other. She stopped when she saw a barefoot man sitting on the sidewalk, drawing symbols identical to those in the abandoned subway, with a piece of charcoal. "Do you see them too?" he asked, without looking up. "They are not from here. They are marks of those who tried to return." Before Veronica could reply, a black van pulled up abruptly, and two men in suits dragged the man inside. The drawing on the pavement, however, remained, a perfect spiral pointing towards the river Es. Oscar, meanwhile, followed the diary's coordinates to a warehouse in Staten Island. The building, supposedly abandoned, emitted a bluish light through its broken windows. Inside, antique radios were connected to test tubes containing the same silvery liquid from the subway. A tape recorder repeated a loop: "The voice is not a sound, it is a memory. And memories do not die, they only wait." Touching one of the tubes, fragmented images flooded his mind. A woman in 19th century attire whispering into a phonograph, a Cold War scientist destroying notes, Radham in a room filled with stopped clocks. When he tried to leave, he found the black-suited agent blocking the door. "You should not be here," the man said, holding an empty vial. "This is not a game. Every time someone hears the fracture, it widens." That same night, the Natural History Museum was raided. Security cameras showed Radham and Dr. Fox stealing the Hudson River device, but the images were distorted, as if time had fluctuated during the act. In a secret room in the back, they connected the object to an antique computer, using algorithms based on the diary's patterns. The screen flickered, revealing a non-linear timeline with overlapping historical events and a flashing red over New York City. "It's here," said Arya, pointing to the current date. "The voice is converging on this moment." But why? Radham, however, had vanished, leaving only a note. "She does not want to be heard. She wants to be remembered." Meanwhile, propelled by an unseen force, Veronica and Oscar walked towards the same train station in Queens. The rusted tracks vibrated with an eerie energy. As they placed the glasses and the diary side by side, the symbols from the subway and the warehouse aligned, forming a phrase in ancient Aramaic: "Those who seek truth must first lose themselves in it." Before they could decipher the meaning, a sonic wave struck them, not through their ears, but through their skin, as if the air had become liquid. For a brief moment, they saw a translucent figure in the center of the platform, lips moving in sync with all the voices they had ever heard, all the words ever whispered in the city. It had no face, only a void where eyes should be, but its hands held a mirror reflecting, not Oscar or Veronica, but versions of themselves in other eras: an 18th century navigator, a Cold War physicist, a boy in a future library. The voice, finally clear, said only, "You are the echo. I am what remains." The echo of the voice expanded, like a wave that kept repeating itself on multiple levels of time. Oscar and Veronica, still under the impact of the vision, felt themselves drawn into a flow that was not physical, but temporal. The world around them crumbled into fragments. Streets that no longer existed, voices that had spoken centuries ago, and scenes that seemed to belong to a distant future. Amidst the chaos, they realized they were connected to something greater, a web of memories, secrets, and possibilities that transcended time. Meanwhile, in the city center, Veronica's glasses glowed faintly, as if reacting to something unseen. She heard the whisper again, but now it wasn't coming from outside, it was within her, in her heart, in her mind. It was an ancient voice, yet also new, as if it had been waiting for someone to hear it. In that same instant, Oscar felt the diary vibrate in his hands, the pages turning on their own, as if trying to tell him something he couldn't forget. Ultimately, what remained was the question: What does it mean to be the echo? To be remembered, or to be forgotten? Oscar and Veronica, now aware of their connection to the temporal fracture, understood they could not return to who they were before. They had heard the voice, and with that, they had become part of what it represented. The city continued to pulse, but now, for them, everything held a new meaning, and perhaps, forever.